Hi, this is Leon. Welcome to the Red Couch. In this video today, we're going to talk about relationships, and for that, I've got Paula here with me. I believe relationships is a key thing, and when I talk about relationships, we talk about communication within relationships, and I think it's one of the most important skills anybody needs to have, whether it's in your relationship, in work, or in any kind of environment where you need to negotiate. The key thing there is the ability to communicate, and a lot of times communication becomes a crucial thing. And I think, Paula, I'm not going to go further into this, so I'd like you to introduce yourself and then take it from there and tell us about your work and what you do around relationships and communication.
Thanks, Leon. Thanks for having me on the show. I think, everybody has a defining moment or moments in their life that kind of starts off the journey. And if I have to think back to where my journey started, I have to go back to when I was 7 years old. And I was 7 years old, living in Rhodesia in those days, or Zimbabwe as it's known now. And my mum was on one of those Viscount aeroplanes that were shot down by terrorists over Lake Kariba. So that was kind of a defining moment for me, in that growing up without a mother, I didn't necessarily form healthy relationships from an emotional, feminine perspective.
If I can, you mind if I just step in there?
Sure.
So from the research I've done is what they teach is, especially for girls, and for girls that don't feel they've got an emotional bond with their mothers, those type of girls tend to reach puberty earlier, because if you look at the brain thinks very much in black and white. I'm either going to live or I'm going to die. If people don't like me, I will die. And what it will do then is try and make sure that if I die, at least my seed will carry on. So just on what you said with your relationship with your mom, it's kind of, if you don't have that connection, even your body and your brain develops differently in that situation now.
Well, pretty true, pretty accurate. But the first 7 years of a child's life is where the foundation of our emotional intelligence is formed. And at 7, it's that crucial age. But it was really about the fact that my dad did not have a high level of emotional intelligence or capacity. So he could not provide that kind of nurturing from his perspective, and then obviously not having a mother, I grew up without learning those skills. So that kind of led me to later on in life where I didn't know how to forge healthy relationships in terms of adult relationships, in fact relationships in general. But I have to go back to kind of the rest of the journey. So that was when I was 7 years old, and then going into sort of my early teens, sort of 12 around there, 12, 13, I was also exposed to sexual abuse as a child. And based on that, that also then led to later on in life where I started having a lot of insecurities in terms of low self-confidence, low self-worth, low self-esteem, issues with my body in terms of not having a healthy sense of self and identity, so much so that later on in life, so my sort of early 20s, 19, 20, 21, I started binge eating because I hated myself. I hated my body. And so binge eating in that I would either try and starve myself because I thought I was fat and ugly and all of these things, or I would go and eat and then go and basically make myself sick afterwards. And it was all to do with subconsciously, I didn't know it at the time, but this whole, as a result of what I'd been through, that I didn't have a healthy image and a healthy relationship with self. And as a result of that, I didn't know how to have healthy relationships with other people. And then going on into my adult life, I, through a string of failed relationships, ended up in therapy with a relationship at the time, 6.5-year relationship that had hit rock bottom, and we were going for therapy. And it was our therapist that referred us to Imago relationship therapy.
I've heard about that now.
And Imago relationship therapy was the defining moment for me, where it just was like a light switch went on. And it was such an aha moment for me because it just made so much sense. It helped me understand so much about myself, who I had become, the string of failed relationships behind me, how my childhood had influenced who I had become, and my behavioral traits and my relationship patterns.
Okay.
So based on the experience with Imago, it was then and then that I decided that I wanted to teach this to other people.
Were you then in corporate, or what were you doing at the moment?
I
at that
was,
stage?
yes, yeah. I was in corporate. I'd studied marketing and advertising through the IMM, and that was one of the reasons why my relationship at the time had failed, is I was working full-time and I was studying for my degree part-time because university wasn't an option when I was growing up. So I put myself through university and got my degree, but I had become so self-absorbed on trying to work full-time and then study because I got a bursary through the company that I was working for. And part of the agreement was that you either passed everything, or if you failed, you had to pay it back and work it back. So I was going to make damn sure that I didn't fail anything, and that was the incentive. So as a result of that, I wasn't meeting my partner's needs because I was so self-absorbed. And he wasn't meeting my needs in being supportive and helping me, juggle all of this. And so we ended up living separate lives, and that's how the relationship sort of came to a grinding halt 6.5 years later. And as I said, that was the turning point for me, where it just going to Imago relationship therapy and understanding the journey is how I got into what I do today, which is, as a relationship expert, my expertise is dealing with relationships, both individuals and organizations, around the relationship dynamics of a relationship, starting with relationship with self, relationship in your personal space with your partner, children, family, and friends, and then relationships in the organizational space, again, starting with self. How are you showing up in the workplace, and how are you co-creating your relationships in both worlds? Because they're very much integrated. Whether you like it or not, you take work to home and you take home to work. And what you bring into the relational space, which is the space between two people, determines the health and the quality of your relationships and your life, for that matter.
But you've also written a book about this. What is your book called?
Yeah, so my book is called Embracing Conflict.
Yes.
It didn't actually start out as a book. If someone had said to me 2 years ago, I would have written a book, I would have gone, never. It was never intentional, it just kind of came about. I was writing a lot of articles for my blog and my website, and a friend of mine had written 2 books, and I was asking her about, how do you go about writing these books? And so she helped me, gave me some tips and some ideas, and I thought, well, hey, maybe I can do this. So I started collating all the content that I had written over the years and brought it all together in a self-help guide. So after each section in my book, there are some templates or questions that you need to complete, self-reflection time, and just a way of working through the book it's a short book, but the depth of the book is in working through the exercises and doing the exercises around gaining a healthy sense of self and personal growth and development.
That's cool. And the book's available where?
Book is available at Scoob's bookstore in Monte Cassino, Johannesburg, or off my website, paulaquinsee.com, and also on amazon.com.
Okay, so I'll add the links for that in the video. So if anybody wants the book, they can go order it from your website or go search for you on Kindle.
That'll be awesome.
How does what you do help individuals? Because you talk about you do it for individuals and for corporate. So how do you focus on an individual, and what is it that you make them better at when we talk about communication and relationships?
So when it comes to working with an individual one-on-one, it really just depends on where they are at in their life and what they're looking for help with.
Do you have something that you use to determine where they're at? Just through discussion, or is there something they complete?
It's generally through discussion initially. They will either say, I'm feeling this, or I'm wanting this, or I'm stuck here. So for example, someone's just come through a relationship, and they now need to pick up the pieces and start a new life as a single person. So it's helping them understand what went wrong in their relationship, why it ended, how they contributed to the relationship ending, because we all play a part and we play a role. And then how can they take the insights and the learning from that, carry that forward with them, and apply it into their next relationship going forward, so that they don't repeat the same patterns or the same mistakes, so to speak. And then through that, also getting a healthy sense of self in terms of redefining your identity as now a single person versus being a part of something and someone. Because a lot of people tend to lose their identity in relationships.
So just on that, I had a discussion once with a friend, and this whole thing about myself being divorced and coming out of a relationship a while back. I always thought, it is a 50-50 thing. If a relationship breaks up, it's 50-50, and it's always like half responsibility for what happened. But in the discussion, what came out for me is that it's not always the truth. It could be a 80-20, a 90-10, where sometimes there's just nothing you can do to save a relationship. Do you agree with that, or do you believe it's always a 50-50 thing when it comes to relationship?
I think any relationship can be saved if both partners are willing to work on it. I think at the end of the day, love doesn't walk away. People walk away. People give up on each other. Love doesn't give up on each other. And if you're at that point where you're bringing out the worst in each other, then maybe it is better to walk away. But at the end of the day, we co-create our situations. Situations don't just happen. You don't just wake up in the morning and decide, well, today I'm going to fight with you, or today I'm going to have an affair, or today I'm going to get divorced. It happens over time. And if you don't make time for your relationships, then over time you're not going to have a relationship.
Yeah, that's true.
So it's about understanding, well, what was your contribution? What was the role that you played? And take ownership of that, because that's all you can own.
Yeah.
And walk away with that as the insights and the lessons and the learnings, and take that with you on your journey, just as much as the other person or partner has to take their contribution as their journey.
Okay. And then on the corporate side, what do you do for corporates when it comes to communication and relationships?
So in the organizational space, a lot of it is to do with people and team dynamics, and how you are co-creating that space by how you are showing up in the organizational space. Conflict management styles. We will play out a similar conflict management style in our personal life and in our professional life. So for example, if you don't like conflict and you avoid conflict, you will avoid it in your personal space and you'll avoid it in the workplace. Yeah. And so it's helping individuals understand how they are showing up, how they are co-creating the space, but then also through some of the assessments and tools that I use, understand how teams can work better together by identifying what their strengths are, and how they can then leverage each other's strengths to become a more empowered and stronger team.
Okay. So just on that, we talk about how people act when they're at home and when they're at work and the difference. What I've sometimes found is that people will wear masks. So when you're at work, you wear one mask. When you're at home with your family, you've got another one. And then when you're out with your friends, there might be a third or fourth mask that comes on. My question always is, which one is really you? Who are you really? And how do you help people get rid of those masks? Is that part of what you do, or is that just going to happen? Because for me, it shouldn't. I believe whoever you are at home, you should be at work and you should be with your friends. My biggest question is always, so if you're in a relationship and you wear those masks, is that person married to the real you or the mask you wear when you're with them?
Yeah, and that's a tough question. But I think at the end of the day, if you are being authentic and living your truth and being true to yourself, then you should be the same in any environment. Environments do create a situation where we may show up in a more social way, a more fun or playful way, or a more serious way. But I think it goes back to basics, which is it aligns to your value system and your beliefs. And if you know what your value system is, if you know what your personal boundaries are, if you are living your truth and being true to yourself, then that should play out in all areas, irrespective.
Okay. So if there's one message that you could leave for people, for the person watching us, and something that they can take away from this, what is a key message that you can give them to help them?
Yeah, I think, your past doesn't define who you are. Rather, it provides stepping stones for you to create the future that you want. And it's about, in the hope that telling my story and sharing my story, that I can inspire other people who are on their own journey and are climbing their own mountain to succeed and step into their own greatness, because we all have a gift to share.
We do, yeah, that's true. Thank you. Where can we get hold of you? Email address, Facebook, Twitter, website, how can we find you and make use of your services?
So all of those. Website is paulaquinsee.com. You can find me on Twitter, Paula Quinsee. You can find me on Facebook, Paula Quinsee, Relationship Expert. And on my website, paulaquinsee.com.
Okay, all the same, all easy.
All the same, all easy.
Okay. Thank you very much for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure. And thank you for sharing your story. It's sometimes not easy for people to share those kind of dramatic things that's happened to them in the younger years. And just thank you for being open and sharing.
Thank you.
Appreciate that. Thank you for joining us, and I'll see you again.